Okay, before we get going, I got one thing to show you. Right? Wait for it. Come on. Now that's pretty exciting. What a time to be alive, my friends. No longer are we being oppressed by a bloated system of companies guarding the gates of content. Yes, now you can take your own photos, shoot your own video, even vertical without some old-timey director rolling his eyes. You can also stream, and you can post your photos nearly the very second that you've taken them. Sure, cameras that do photo and video have been around for a very long time, but here's the problem. Number one is they've been expensive, they have been heavy, they have been complicated to use, and until very recently, they've made it somewhat difficult for you to film yourself. But that is all changing because a lot of brands now are releasing cameras that are 80% as good as their premium models, but at half the price and half the complexity. The most recent camera to jump into this fray is the very one that I'm speaking into right now. Yes, you guessed it, it is the Fujifilm X-S20, a very healthy update from the Fujifilm X-S10. But with 80%, yeah, okay, I'm making that number up kind of, but you get the idea, 80% of the firepower of the X-H2S. And that's exciting because it has a form factor, a design, and a price that is much more amenable to you, the creator, the traveler, or the aspiring debutante. So why don't we head back into the studio and chat about it. Today is all about the key design elements of the X-S20 and how it is really made for creators of all types of content. And we'll discuss as well where it strays from the X-H2S. Now, the term content creator is a bit ambiguous because it can mean a lot of things. Now, to illustrate an example, let's say that I pretend to be a content creator for the sake of this video. Let's imagine that I own or I make content for a small brand, like, I don't know, a bespoke skincare brand or makeup brand. I know this is a bit of a stretch, but I had a beauty shoot last week and, well, I'm double dipping. My point is, I might include, let's say, marketing material, product photography, or even tutorial content. Something that used to take multiple people can now feasibly be done by one. What I intend to communicate in this video is what this camera is actually like to use and what separates it from its big brother, the X-H2S. Since we're starting this video by me talking into this camera, why don't we talk about what it's like to talk into this camera? And my answer? Very easy. And the reason is because it comes with a brand new mode called Vlog Mode. It's right on the dial, and its whole intent is to make it as easy as possible to do this very thing. And it does that vis-a-vis a heads-up display that is right on the LCD screen with sort of big, screen buttons, so I don't have to dig to the back of the camera to set anything or to start anything. Really, really awesome. The second thing is that it comes basically as all auto from the factory, but you can change it and you can make it completely manual. But I encourage you to get used to the auto. Fujifilm cameras are really, really great with all auto and just kind of keeping your exposure right in the pocket where you want it. And that's the goal, and the intent is to make it as easy for you to make as good of content as possible as quickly as possible with the least amount of fuss. So especially if you're new and you don't know a lot about cameras, all auto on these cameras are really, really incredible. And then as you get better, you can change it to something much more advanced and manual. In addition to that, the camera is like 200 grams lighter than that of the X-H2S. And let me tell you folks, this is probably like my 50th take, if I'm honest. I screw up a lot, and then there's like helicopters, power tools, cars that just idle very loudly, buses. I've been holding this camera for a really, really long time, and I'm not typically that fond of doing this, and I'm not that fatigued either. So I think it's a big win to have something that's 200 grams lighter. It doesn't seem like much, but it is something. And in addition, you can buy a separate Bluetooth adapter that's a handle and a grip and a tripod. With all these told, I think that it's a big win for people who really like to film themselves. I'm not particularly one of those people. I think you can figure that out. But, the camera is set up for you to be the star of your own show. And while we're at it, why don't we head back to the studio and talk about the design. There's no significant redesign over its predecessor, the X-S10, but it is worth noting that users of XT or XH style cameras may find the X-S20 to be, well, somewhat bereft of function buttons. However, this camera has something that no other Fujifilm camera has ever had before, and I can hardly contain my excitement. Right? Start and stop beeps for video. Provided you don't need to be super discreet, this is a valuable addition whenever you're shooting fast and furiously. Now, coming back to its design, like I said, as an X-H2S user, I definitely struggle a bit with the X-S20, but hey, this camera is not made for me. If you're new to content creation or you just simply feel overwhelmed by the complexity of bigger cameras, well then the X-S20 most definitely solves for this. Now, the point of this camera should be to dissolve any complexity or intimidation. And it does that fantastically well by giving you only the absolutely necessary buttons and dials. Now, there are two little annoyances for me. One is that one of the function buttons is kind of like right here by the EVF, and it's factory set to white balance. Neither of those things make any sense to me, so I remapped it to viewfinder modes, which almost seems like that's why it's placed there. But I would have preferred it in a much less cumbersome area. I'm also missing a function button on the front, but I won't die on that cross. It is just something that I use all the time on my X-H2S. Overall though, by changing virtually nothing over the X-S10, they've maintained a design that simply won't scare users away from using the camera. What they've done is just simply swapped out the engine. Now let's see what this little engine can do. The only thing not ported over from the X-H2S is the CMOS 5 stack sensor, using instead the same CMOS 4 sensor as is in the S10. Now what does this mean? Primarily, this is going to reflect your readout speed. The X-H2S can do much higher frame rates at higher resolutions and shoot continuous, faster, and longer. But for the target audience of this camera, neither one of those things should really be all that important. When comparing the two though, the X-H2S should give us a bit more dynamic range, about one more stop. And again, not something the user will ever notice, but here's what this looks like. Take a look at these two photos. Can you pick out the X-S20 and the X-H2S? I took several photos with each camera, and here's what I noticed. The X-S20 image has a slight contrast and saturation push, and this is possibly dynamic range playing itself out. When we move over to video, comparing the 6.2K open gate and the 60p 4K, the differences are even less apparent. Technically, the X-H2S should have that extra stop of range, but it's not immediately evident here. So, incredible performance out of the little X-S20. Predictably, where the X-S20 does not hold up to the X-H2S is in the rolling shutter category. The traditional CMOS 4 sensor of the X-S20 simply cannot match the power of the CMOS 5 stack sensor. So if true cinematic handheld work is a priority for you, then the X-H2S is still the camera that you need. For everybody else, I think the power of the X-S20 will likely far exceed your needs. An important note that this camera that I have here is a pre-production model, which is why I've been holding off on really any significant tests. I also don't think pixel peeping contributes to the story of this camera because it's all about its design and how it's designed to be used. Yes, we know it's great for the vlogging crowd, especially those enchanted by the popularity of Fujifilm film simulations or just its form factor. But this is an absolutely charming camera for travel as well. You see, because the deep grip means it's a whole lot easier to hold on to than an XT series style camera, but without gaining any considerable bulk. My final note is how well this camera design is set up for new photographers looking for a camera to grow with. Now, it's absolutely simple and straightforward to work with, and honestly, it was design that I first was attracted to with Fujifilm cameras. And this is an area where I feel they do better than most. Now, a few other things to mention. The lenses that I have used were primarily these Nifty Servo zoom lenses. They're lightweight, sharp, and those servo zooms are hella sexy. Got another one here that is an 18-120, super fun to work with, really great optics. But there is one lens that's releasing at the same time as the X-S20, and that is the 8mm 3.5, and I've got that on my X-H2S here. And this is going to give you an equivalent field of view of about 12 millimeters on a full frame camera. And this has been the chief complaint from many APS-C users, which is it's hard to find a really good ultra wide lens. And I'm a sucker for a super wide lens. This one was an absolute delight to use, with very little barrel distortion. I was very impressed. Nice and sharp. Loved it. This will almost certainly end up in my personal kit. And that is it for today, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please subscribe to this channel for more videos like this and comment in the comment section below. Of course, I want to hear what you have to say, but I also really care about the algorithm. So comment as much as you can. Appreciate that. That is it for me for now, for today. I'm out. It's been fun. Peace.